In the cold silence of his sprawling mansion, tech billionaire Julian Cross stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the housekeeper through the glass. She stepped outside in a hurry, a flicker of something secret in her eyes, her hand clenched around a small object, as if hiding a truth. That warm smile of hers, the one that had once made him pause in his lonely world, now clashed with the subtle gestures that someone like him, someone burned by betrayal, could not ignore. 3 years ago, betrayal had shattered his ability to trust, turning him into a man who questioned every glance, every motive. Now, he raced into the night, his car cutting through the glowing streets, his heart pounding. Why did he want so badly to catch her in a lie, and yet desperately hope she was innocent? And what he discovered that night would force him to confront not just his fears, but the way he judged others, especially those from a different world than his own. Before we continue this story of trust and forgiveness, if you've ever longed for someone to truly see you, hit like and subscribe. Not just to follow the stories that move your heart, but to remind yourself of this: sincerity will always be seen. And those who dare to live with kindness will never be forgotten. 3 years ago, after a betrayal that gutted him, Julian Cross stopped trusting people. And tonight, a random sentence he overheard made him wonder, was the wound reopening? He stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his modern Austin home, the streetlight casting harsh shadows across his sharp, cold features. Lena Reyes, his housekeeper, hurried down the front steps, 2 plastic grocery bags swinging from her hands. Her black ponytail bounced behind her, and that smile, warm, fleeting, made him freeze for half a second. A rare flicker of light in the gray, guarded world he'd built over the past 3 years. "Lena! Wait!" His voice cut through the night air, sharp but not unkind. She turned. Her warm brown eyes met his under the porch light. "Yes, Mr. Cross? Did I forget something?" He studied her face, scanning for any trace of dishonesty. "The bags. What's in them?" Her grip tightened around the handles, fingers trembling slightly. "Just groceries. Picked them up during lunch. Is there a problem?" He stepped closer, his gaze never leaving her. "You've been leaving early a lot lately. You said it was family stuff. Your mom's sick. That's what you told me." Lena nodded, a faint flush coloring her cheeks. "Yes, I did say that. And you need more money, right?" His voice dropped lower. "I heard you on the phone yesterday." She blinked, thrown off. "I don't understand what you're asking." "I'm not asking," he said quietly. "I'm saying something's off." The air between them tightened. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Lena adjusted the bags and lifted her chin. "If you don't trust me, Mr. Cross, maybe you should hire someone else to clean your house." She turned and walked away, her sneakers slapping against the stone path, fading into the night. Julian stood frozen, eyes on the corner where she disappeared. His jaw clenched. There was something in her eyes, something real. It shook him for a second, but then came the memory. Rachel, who used to look at him the same way. Before she stole his work and his heart, he stepped back inside, into the cold, sterile quiet of his home. Gray and white interiors, walls like a fortress, just how he designed them. After Rachel walked away with a multi-million-dollar AI prototype and every ounce of trust he had left, he poured a bourbon, the scent of oak rising, and stared out at the glittering Austin skyline. This house was where he controlled everything, and where he felt most alone. His phone buzzed on the glass table. He picked it up, no greeting. "How's the background check on Lena going, Nate?" Nate Torres, his assistant and one of the few people he still trusted, replied instantly. "Clean, Julian. Squeaky. But you're doing that thing again, getting paranoid. She's worked for you 8 months, not a single red flag." "I don't want her knowing who I really am," Julian said quietly. "To her, I'm just a tech entrepreneur with a big house. Less information, less risk." He paused. "Remember Rachel? Her file was clean too. Didn't stop her from stealing my AI design." Nate sighed. "That was 3 years ago. 2 housekeepers and 1 failed relationship ago. You can't live like this forever." Julian ended the call. He walked to his home office. The glow from the security monitors lit up his face. Empty hallways, pristine rooms, everything in its place. Everything. Empty. He opened his laptop and pulled up Lena's employee file. Lena Reyes, 27, Mexican-American. References checked. Social Security verified. But there were gaps, evenings unaccounted for. A phone call yesterday, in Spanish. He only caught part of it. The chip. Almost got it. Then there was the security report. Unusual activity on the second floor network, his office floor last night. Same time Lena was cleaning. No data was stolen, but something didn't sit right. Yesterday, when he offered to hang up her coat, he noticed a streak of cleaning solution near his desk. As if she'd gone out of her way to get close to his computer. He reviewed footage from the past week. She clocked in at 8, worked efficiently. But during lunch, she was scrolling through AI tech sites. Chatbot interfaces, the kind Crosstech was developing, worth more than her entire year's salary. It was forming a pattern. Early exits, secret calls, unusual behavior, he'd seen it before. That's how betrayal started. His phone buzzed again. Email from security. Signal interference from last night's storm. Camera on floor 2 went out, loose wiring. He scanned the message, jaw tight. Didn't believe in coincidences. He slammed his hand down on the desk. Time to find out the truth. His phone buzzed. Again. Text from Lena. Working late tonight. You don't have to wait up. Julian frowned. Working late? Where? Doing what? He'd given her the evening off. He grabbed his keys and headed for the garage. The matte black Tesla melted into Austin traffic. Lena took the bus. He'd traced her route before, just to be sure she got home safe. But tonight, he needed answers. The night air was cool, the scent of asphalt filtering through the car's vents. Julian's heart pounded as he neared her usual bus stop. He told himself this was about protecting the company, about not repeating old mistakes, about being smart, not naive. But when he saw Lena, ponytail high, plastic bags in hand, stepping onto the number 10 bus, he wasn't sure if he was about to catch another betrayal, or if his obsession was finally devouring him. He stayed 3 cars back, knuckles white on the steering wheel, sweat pricking his forehead despite the AC. Every red light felt like an hour. He stared at her silhouette through the bus windows. His chest tightened. He had no idea what he was about to find. Was Julian wrong about Lena? Or was he just weaving a story to soothe the storm of his own suspicions? Right after she left, Julian checked his office, heart pounding, eyes scanning every corner. But nothing was out of place. No USB drives, no files shifted, just a faint streak of floor cleaner still wet by his desk. He pulled up the security footage, all static, scrambled signal, like someone had tampered with the feed. He couldn't shake the feeling. So for the first time, Julian Cross decided to follow someone. He felt guilty. Told himself he had lines he wouldn't cross. He wouldn't hack her phone, wouldn't touch her personal devices. This was only about the truth. Nothing more. The bus stopped in East Austin. Lena stepped off, plastic bags still swaying in her hand. Julian's Tesla idled a block away, hidden in the shadows of a dim street lamp. He watched as she walked toward a weathered warehouse. Peeling Spanish signage hung above the door. His pulse quickened. This was it. The moment he'd catch her in whatever scheme she was hiding. Lena pushed through the glass door beneath a fading sign, Ignite Lab Tech for Hope. Julian frowned. A community center? He crept closer, blending into the shadows beside a brick wall. Through the wide window, he saw her set the bags down and embrace an older woman. A radiant smile lit her face. On a nearby table, Julian noticed a worn backpack next to Lena's bags. The logo, barely visible, read IL, in a stylized flame. Inside that bag, was that where he'd find the chip she mentioned? Then Lena stepped to the front of the room. 15 teenagers, each with a battered laptop or an old phone, looked up at her with wide, eager eyes. Good evening, everyone, her voice carried through the glass. Tonight we're going to learn how to build a basic chatbot interface. Julian blinked. She was teaching? For the next hour, he stood rooted in place. Lena walked from desk to desk, switching between English and Spanish as she guided the students through basic AI programming. Her smile was bright, natural, nothing like the quiet expression she wore in his home. When one boy struggled with his code, Lena knelt beside him, calmly walking him through each line. When a girl grew frustrated, Lena rested a hand on her shoulder, murmuring something that made the girl laugh. Julian's world tilted. After the session, Lena opened her grocery bag. Bread? Fruit? Cookies? Not for herself. She was plating food for the students, chatting with them, laughing with them. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but the warmth in the room came from her. Julian stepped back, dizzy. The phone call. The early departures. The wet streak by his desk. It all looked different now. Not innocent, but not what he thought. He remembered the backpack in his office yesterday, left behind after Lena finished cleaning. Curious, he'd opened it. Found a USB drive tucked into a Ziploc bag. The label was handwritten, Luis's Robot Project, Ignite Lab. And a note inside, USB won't load on my machine. If you can fix it, let me know. Below that, a child's sketch. A smiling robot labeled, Virtual Doctor, asks symptoms, gives first aid ideas. Julian hadn't noticed the label, hadn't noticed the handwriting. He only saw the sketch, which looked eerily like the AI project Crosstech was building. Luis, not a co-conspirator, just a kid? Julian drove home dazed. Lena's smile, lit with purpose, burned in his memory. The next morning, the backpack was still on his desk. When Lena came in, Julian was waiting. You left this, he said, voice neutral. She gave an awkward laugh. Oh, that must have gotten mixed in with my cleaning supplies. I carry them between houses. He didn't look away. What are you hiding from me, Lena? She hesitated, voice soft. I'm trying. But you wouldn't understand. That vagueness made his hands curl into fists. She was hiding something. Later, in his office, Julian opened his laptop, searched Ignite Lab. The website loaded. A nonprofit helping immigrants in East Austin. Tech classes, job training, childcare. Funded entirely by donations and volunteers. Photos filled the homepage. Lena teaching code. Lena leading a robotics workshop. Lena laughing with kids in a STEM classroom. She glowed in every shot. The financial reports were grim. Scraping by month to month, programs being cut, the building in disrepair. Julian thought about her juggling 3 jobs, cleaning his house, pulling shifts at a downtown coffee shop, weekends in a grocery store. Just so she could teach at this place. So she could afford to feed kids after class, with her own money. Elsewhere, in a cramped apartment, Lena sat beside her mother, Rosa. Her eyes sparkled as she spoke. He's building tech to save lives, Mama. When he asks about my class, I feel like I matter. Rosa held her daughter's hand, worried. Sweetheart, this man, your boss, is he really that kind, or just someone passing through your life? Lena hesitated. Something in her gaze softened. Mama, I just admire him. That's all. Julian's phone buzzed. Nate, find anything juicy on your little spy mission? Julian rubbed his face. I'm an idiot. What happened? She didn't steal anything, he exhaled. She's good, Nate. Actually good. He told him everything. Embarrassed, awed. The money she sends home, it's for her mom's medical bills. The early departures, she's teaching. Those AI websites, probably just dreams. There was a long pause. Then Nate's voice, softer. When's the last time you met someone genuinely good? Julian didn't answer. The next morning he timed his coffee break with her arrival. Lena entered the kitchen and froze. Good morning, Mr. Cross. I'll get out of your way. No, he said gently. Stay. I'd like to hear about your evening classes. Lena stopped, a dish towel in her hand. My, what? Your volunteer work. Teaching tech. Her face went pale. She sank into the chair. You know, I followed you. Her voice trembled. Are you going to fire me? Fire you? Why would I do that? Because I lied about working late, because I used my lunch break to buy food instead of eating, because I was distracted thinking about my students when I should have been focused on your floors. Julian stared at her. A woman who thought compassion was a reason to be fired. Tell me about your students. Lena looked up, cautious. They're mostly teens. Some dropped out. Some never had the chance to study. Luis is 16. He wants to build AI but thinks he's not smart enough. Maria's 15. She's learning code so she can help her mom with paperwork. They're proud kids. They just need one shot to shine. As she spoke, her voice changed. Clear, certain, full of purpose. Julian listened, not to the words, but to the truth in them. And for the first time in years, he wasn't moved by suspicion, but by the woman in front of him. To Julian, Lena had always been just the housekeeper. But what she did after hours made him realize how deeply he'd misunderstood her. As she spoke about her students, her entire face lit up. Her voice pulsed with energy, so unlike the quiet woman who usually dusted his bookshelves in silence. The center might shut down, she said, her tone dropping. Her fingers unconsciously twisted the cleaning rag in her hands. We can't afford the rent anymore. I try to buy extra supplies when I can, but... She trailed off with a helpless shrug, like the weight of the world sat on her shoulders. That afternoon, Julian sat in his office, the glow from his laptop painting pale shadows across his face. He rewatched the security footage he had once viewed with suspicion. The static, not sabotage, just a loose cable. Lena had accidentally knocked it while adjusting his bookshelf, trying to tidy up. Not deceit, just kindness. Misread. Julian opened a secure browser. Through a shell company, he wired $60,000, an anonymous donation to Ignite Lab. No names, no trace. When he hit send, something shifted in his chest. For the first time in years, his money felt like more than numbers. It meant something. The next morning, Lena entered the kitchen, eyes shining like twin suns. She was holding a mop bucket but looked like she might dance. Mr. Cross, you won't believe this. Someone donated $60,000 to the center. We're saved. Julian sipped his coffee, hiding a smile behind the rim. That's incredible, he said casually. Do you know who gave it? No clue. Totally anonymous. They just said they believed in our mission. Lena spun slightly as she unpacked her cleaning supplies. We can finally fix the AC, buy more laptops, maybe even launch a new programming class. Maria, one of my students, cried when she heard. Watching her beam, Julian felt something warm blossom in his chest. He had made someone happy, truly, deeply happy. His mind flashed back to the night at Ignite Lab. Lena had knelt beside a young boy named Luis, helping him tinker with a medical assistant robot. Luis had grinned up at her. Miss Lena, the chip's broken, but if we fix it, the robot can track heartbeats better. Julian had flinched. The chip wasn't stolen tech. It was a learning tool. A teenager nearby, Mateo, had been painting a cactus mural across the brick wall. This is for the whole community, Miss Lena, he'd shouted proudly. Lena had laughed, eyes glowing with something Julian hadn't seen in a long time. Belonging. In the weeks that followed, Julian found himself lingering. He made excuses to stay home during her shifts. He'd suddenly remember to grab a coffee while she was dusting the living room shelves. He'd need to check emails from the kitchen just as she prepared her lunch. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Lena told him about her thesis, unfinished, on technological inequality. Her dream to become an AI developer focused on underserved communities. Her aching homesickness for New Mexico. Curious, Julian searched for her name on Ignite Lab's website. She had once been a robotics standout in New Mexico. Dropped out of college when her mother, Rosa, developed a chronic illness and could no longer work. Lena picked up 3 jobs to support her younger brother. In her spare time, she mentored over 80 youth in STEM, helped kids like Luis land internships, and made sure no student got left behind. And Julian? He found himself sharing too, slowly. Little stories about his company, anecdotes from business trips, even moments of his own isolation in the sprawling, beautiful cage he called home. One November afternoon, as Lena arranged fresh flowers in the dining room vase, she asked softly, "You don't have family, Mr. Cross?" Julian paused his typing. His gaze drifted toward the window. "My parents died when I was 22. Car accident." Lena stopped. The vase in her hands froze midair. "I'm so sorry. That must have been incredibly hard." "It was." He paused, his voice lowered. "But it taught me how to be self-reliant. A beat. Maybe too self-reliant." Lena offered a gentle smile, her voice barely above a whisper. "Family isn't always blood, you know. At Ignite Lab, we're family. Rosa, my mom, brings tamales for everyone." Her eyes brightened as she continued. "Last night, she brought coffee for the kids while they were fixing a robot with Luis. He calls her abuela, like real family." She chuckled. "Luis fixed the printer even though no one asked. We take care of each other." Julian listened, something like envy blooming in his chest. That sense of belonging, he didn't have it. His world was contracts, executives, and people who always wanted something. Even Nate, his closest friend, was someone he paid. By December, Julian quietly wired another anonymous donation to Ignite Lab, enough to buy laptops for the new coding class Lena had once mentioned. Later, while skimming through local news, he saw a photo of Lena, beaming, as she cut the ribbon on the new lab room. That warmth returned again, unexpected and unfamiliar. "You look different lately," Nate remarked during their weekly Zoom call, a mischievous grin on his face. "Happier. You haven't run a background check all week." Julian dodged the comment and changed the subject. But Nate was right. Something was shifting. That constant, gnawing doubt was fading. He sat in his car one night, staring at a picture of Lena on the Ignite Lab website. She was teaching, smiling, alive. Julian realized, with a pang, that he had become the very man he used to resent, someone who didn't trust anyone. Now, slowly, trust was beginning to take root again. Lena's presence in his home brought with it a quiet warmth he hadn't known he was missing. One January morning, Julian walked into the kitchen to find Lena at the table, surrounded by books and notes. "Sorry, Mr. Cross," she said quickly. "I came in early to make up hours. I have a thesis meeting this afternoon." "What's your thesis about?" He sat across from her, genuinely curious. Her eyes lit up. "It's about access to technology in immigrant communities. I'm researching how learning to code, getting job support, and forming tech-based communities can help break the poverty cycle." She spoke about Luis. "He dropped out once. But after joining the robotics program at Ignite, he won our internal contest. And now he wants to be an AI engineer." For the next hour, Lena spoke with such clarity and passion, her voice weaving facts and hopes into something almost magnetic. She talked about systemic inequality, about families juggling 3 jobs and still barely getting by, about the dignity of people who needed opportunity, not pity. "Most people don't see that," she said, her gaze far away. "They see a janitor or a barista and think that's all they're capable of. But Luis, he was a robotics champion. Rosa, she used to run a bakery in Mexico. They're brilliant, just stuck in survival mode jobs because their degrees or skills don't count here." Julian felt a sting of shame. He thought of his own assumptions about Lena, how he once looked right past her. "I want to change that," she continued. "Create programs that recognize what people already know. Help them grow from there instead of starting from zero." "That's important work, Lena," Julian said, his voice sincere. She blushed and shook her head. "It's just a thesis. Probably won't change anything." "Don't say that. You've already changed things. At Ignite Lab?" Their eyes met across the table. Something unspoken lingered in the air, soft, electric. Lena looked away, gathering her papers quickly. "I should get to work." That afternoon, Julian made a decision. "Lena," he said later, "I want to offer you a full-time position. Higher salary, health insurance, paid leave. You'd manage the household, help coordinate staff, maybe even organize my schedule. Something like a chief of home operations." Lena looked stunned. That's an incredibly generous offer, Mr. Cross." Julian used to think of Lena as just the housekeeper. But when she turned down the opportunity he offered, he realized he might be losing something far greater. She stood in the kitchen, light from the chandelier catching in her high ponytail. She held a dish towel, hesitant. During lunch, Julian had seen her browsing on her phone. A recruitment post from a rival AI company flashed across the screen. Was she job hunting? A sharp pang hit him, like déjà vu from a betrayal long past. "About your offer." Julian looked up, heart beating faster. "I trust you, Lena," he said, and to his surprise, he meant it. "Lena, I want to offer you the role of Director of Social Equity at CrossTech. $180,000 a year. You'd be able to carry out your mission, just with far more resources." Lena bit her lip, her eyes clouding with uncertainty. "Could I think about it?" "Of course." But Julian saw the conflict in her eyes. More money meant stability for her family, but less time for Ignite Lab. Less time for her thesis, for the passion that made her come alive. That night, in her small apartment, Lena whispered into the phone, "If Luis gets that internship, I'll be free in a few weeks. I can focus more on Ignite Lab." Julian, who'd left his phone on the kitchen counter, overheard it. His chest tightened. Was she planning to leave? Leave him? A week later, she knocked on the door of his office. Light from his monitor lit her face. "I've decided," she said. Julian looked up, breath stilled. "I'm deeply grateful," she began, taking a steady breath. "But I can't accept. Because if I did, I'd be living someone else's dream, not mine." She looked at him, eyes trembling. "Ignite Lab needs me. My thesis matters. And honestly, I've fallen for someone I could never have." Julian felt the floor tilt beneath him. Someone she could never have? Was it Mateo, the young man from the Ignite Lab website? The one who led the robotics workshop, always smiling beside her? Julian suddenly felt small. Like an outsider in her world. Maybe this Mateo inspired her. Maybe he understood her purpose in ways Julian never could. "But our worlds are too different," she said softly, eyes glistening. "It could never work." Julian's heart sank. She loved someone who shared her values. Not him, a man who only knew her through dusting shelves and awkward conversations. For the first time since his parents' accident, Julian felt something inside him break. "She doesn't need me. But why do I want her to stay so badly? That weekend, Julian sat in his office staring blankly at spreadsheets. Lena loves someone else, a volunteer at Ignite Lab maybe. Young, idealistic, part of her world. Trying to clear the fog, he invited her to a quiet restaurant in East Austin. Warm lights, soft music. When he handed her a plate of tacos, their fingers brushed. Both recoiled, cheeks flushed. Sorry, she mumbled, eyes downcast. Julian's heart pounded. Monday morning came. Lena arrived on time as usual, but the warm energy between them had vanished. Good morning, Mr. Cross, she said. Good morning, he replied, eyes fixed on the paper. That week passed in polite silence. Julian buried himself in work, took calls behind closed doors, ate lunch at his desk. Lena cleaned around him like a ghost, quiet, invisible. Friday afternoon. Lena knocked on the office door. Mr. Cross, I wanted to give you my 2 weeks' notice. I'm resigning. Julian looked up, stomach sinking. Resigning? Why? Lena twisted the bottle of cleaning spray in her hands, voice quiet. I got accepted into a graduate program in community development. My internship starts in March, so I need to finish my thesis. Congratulations, Julian said evenly, though his chest tightened. That's a huge achievement. Thank you, she replied, eyes flickering away. I'll make sure everything's perfect before I go. I can help train my replacement if you'd like. No need. Silence settled between them, thick and heavy like the air before a storm. Lena nodded and turned to leave. Lena, Julian called as she reached the doorway. I'm proud of you. What you're doing. It matters. Her shoulders slumped slightly. Thank you. That means more than you know. The next 2 weeks felt like slow torture. Julian found himself memorizing her routines, the way she wiped down the windows, the soft whistling she did when she thought no one could hear. Each passing day reminded him he was about to lose her for good. He helped her prep for interviews, wrote glowing recommendation letters, passionate, detailed letters that felt like love letters he would never send. By Wednesday of her final week, Tech Hope Austin called. They want to schedule your second-round interview, Julian told her, voice steady. Lena's face lit up. Really? That's my dream job, helping immigrant families access services directly. You'll be amazing, Julian said, even as his heart cracked a little more. Thursday night. Lena stayed late, reorganizing the shelves in his office. Julian brought her coffee, only to find her quietly wiping away tears at the kitchen table. What's wrong? He asked, sitting down across from her. She dabbed her eyes quickly, shook her head. Nothing, just tired. Lena, he said gently, don't lie. She let out a sad laugh. It's stupid. I'm so close to my dream. I'm leaving to finish my thesis, start a new job, but I'm going to miss this place. Our conversations, the feeling that someone actually cares about my work. Julian's heart pounded. Someone does care, and always will. Their eyes met. Time slowed. The night before, Rosa, Lena's mother, had warned her. Mija, men like him live in a different world. Don't let your heart get lost. But Lena couldn't stop thinking about Julian. Even knowing the distance between them was a chasm. In that moment, Julian wanted to say everything. That he'd followed her. Funded her center. That she'd changed how he saw the world. That he'd fallen in love with her kindness, her fire, her brilliant mind. But instead he asked, that person you once mentioned, the one you said you could never reach, did you ever tell him how you feel? Lena shook her head, eyes distant. What's the point? We're from two different worlds. He'll never see me as anything more than, she gestured hopelessly, a maid, someone who started from nothing. Julian leaned in, voice low. Lena, you are not nothing. You're extraordinary. She gave a faint, sad smile. You're kind to say that. Lena left, and with her the light inside Julian's home disappeared. Now he wondered if he'd ever feel that warmth again. Her last day came too quickly. She finished her tasks, packed her cleaning supplies into a nylon bag, the sound of spray bottles clinking softly. Instead of a farewell envelope, Julian handed her a box. Inside, a $5,000 AI-ready laptop and a handwritten note that read, "Build your future. I'll be watching." Lena stared at the laptop, eyes wide. She touched it gently, heart heavy, unsure if Julian saw her as someone worthy or just someone he helped. But she kept it, her eyes misting with emotion at the sincerity behind the gesture. It's too much, Mr. Cross. I can't accept this. You deserve it, Julian said firmly. Consider it a graduation gift. Lena's voice trembled. I don't know what to say. Just say you'll keep in touch. Let me know how you're doing. They stood in the foyer, chandelier light reflecting off polished hardwood. Neither wanted to say goodbye. At last, Lena stepped forward, hugged him. Quick, fleeting, like a passing breeze. Thank you for everything, Mr. Cross. You weren't just an employer. You were a friend. Take care of yourself, Lena. She nodded and stepped outside, her sneakers tapping softly against the stone path. Julian stood there, watching until she disappeared behind the trees. Later, through the security camera feed, he watched her silhouette fade down the street. And the ache returned, that familiar loss, like when Rachel vanished 3 years ago. But this time it was worse, because Lena had never betrayed him. He walked through the house, everything was clean, in place, and utterly hollow. His fortress now felt like a prison. The next 3 months blurred. He hired a new housekeeper, Clara. Efficient, quiet, never spoke unless asked. He buried himself in work, contracts, profits, performance reviews. The numbers felt meaningless. But Lena stayed with him. He kept sending anonymous donations to Ignite Lab, following news about new class expansions. Through Nate, he heard updates. She landed the job at Tech Hope Austin, Nate said over lunch, eyes twinkling. She's doing amazing. Still single, you know. Julian stirred his coffee, avoiding the comment. I just want her to be happy. And what about you? Nate asked. Julian shrugged. Then came the invitation. A formal card, embossed with gold trim. Ignite Lab presents Tech for Justice Gala, honoring social impact leaders. Lena would be recognized for her volunteer work, named one of 5 young social leaders in the country. She'd stand on stage, representing the very people the world often overlooks. People like her, people he once misjudged. He debated attending, changed his mind a dozen times, but finally he RSVP'd yes. He told himself it was just to see her success, to witness her joy from a distance. But as the gala approached, he knew the truth. He hoped for something more, a chance to find out if the connection between them had ever been real, or if it was just his illusion. Julian stood in his dressing room, the soft glow of the ceiling light casting shadows over rows of expensive suits. He had changed his mind about attending the gala at least 6 times that week. Nate leaned in the doorway, his tone teasing. You're overthinking it. Go to the gala, write a check, go home. Simple. What if she thinks I'm stalking her? What if she's glad to see you? Julian pulled out a deep navy suit, muttering to himself. She's moved on, new life. I'm just the past. Across town, Lena stood in the small bathroom of her apartment, her hand trembling slightly as she applied lipstick. The Ignite Lab gala felt like a dream. 6 months ago, she was scrubbing houses to make ends meet. Now, she was being honored for her work. You look beautiful, Mija. Her mother, Rosa, said warmly from the doorway. She had arrived in Austin 2 weeks earlier, her health finally stable after surgery. I'm so nervous, Mom. Nervous? Why? You earned this. Lena couldn't bring herself to explain the truth, that a part of her, however foolish, was hoping Julian would be there. A millionaire like him, showing up to a community gala? Ridiculous. Tell me again about your old boss, Rosa said, settling onto Lena's bed. Mom, I've told you 100 times. Indulge me, you always smile when you talk about him. Lena sighed, glancing at herself in the mirror. He was kind, but lonely. We talked about my work, my dreams. He made me feel like what I did mattered. And you loved him, Rosa said, her eyes twinkling. Lena froze. It doesn't matter, Mom. We're from 2 different worlds. Love doesn't care about worlds, mi amor. Ignite Lab was glowing. String lights twinkled from the ceiling, white linen covered the tables, and a small stage stood ready for the night's program. Lena arrived early, adjusting flower arrangements on the tables as the scent of coffee drifted through the air. There's our teacher. Maria, now 15, a former student and current STEM class assistant, called out brightly. I still can't believe they're giving me an award, Lena said, fixing a bouquet. You saved this place. Luis chimed in, once a dropout, now a teaching assistant in the robotics class. That anonymous donation came right after you told us the center might shut down. Then the second one, right when you mentioned needing laptops. Too much of a coincidence, right? Lena had wondered the same thing. The first donation had arrived just days after she confided in Julian about their funding troubles. The second one showed up right after she brought up the idea for a new lab. Still, anonymous donors were common in nonprofits, weren't they? Guests began arriving at 6, the air filled with cheerful conversation in multiple languages. Lena moved through the crowd, hugging former students, laughing with their families. She felt at home, but a small part of her still scanned the room, hoping to see one familiar face in the crowd. Julian stood among the crowd at the Tech for Justice Gala, heart pounding. Would Lena recognize he was the one behind it all? Or would she only see him as the man who nearly ruined her dream? Children darted between banquet tables. Laughter echoed through Ignite Lab, now adorned with glowing string lights and the faint scent of tacos in the air. Near the entrance, Lena smiled brightly as she chatted with the family. Julian noticed a young man approach, Matteo, his grin wide as he embraced Lena. They spoke closely, her eyes lighting up, and Julian felt the sting of being on the outside, a stranger in her vibrant world. She wore a simple black dress, her hair tied up, and the chandelier light cast a soft glow over her, like she belonged on a stage. Julian, in his tailored navy suit, stood quietly at the edge, scanning the room. He had never felt more out of place. Then, their eyes met across the crowded space. Lena froze, breath catching in her throat. He's really here. Julian's chest tightened. She looked more radiant than ever, not because of the dress, but because of the confidence she exuded as she moved through the room. This was her world. Warm, purposeful, full of life. He didn't belong here. And yet, he couldn't make himself leave. "Mr. Cross," a voice cut through the noise. Luis, the 16-year-old student from Lena's class, walked up, beaming. He handed Lena a USB stick. "Miss Lena, this is the birthday video we made for you. Because of you, I got a scholarship to MIT. Luis added, "She stayed late with me before the robotics competition, helped debug every single line of code until I won first place. She's a hero, and the robot I built is going to be tested at a local hospital." Lena wiped away tears and hugged the boy, eyes shining. "She told us about you, Mr. Cross," Luis added. "You were really good to her when she worked at your house." "She talked about me?" Julian asked, surprised. But before Luis could respond, the program began. Lena was called up to the stage to receive the Outstanding Volunteer Award. She held the engraved wooden plaque, standing before the microphone, stage lights catching the warmth in her brown eyes. Julian watched her, not just admiring her beauty, but the kind of person she was. The kind of person he wanted to be. Someone who lived for something greater than herself, with fire in her words and purpose in her heart. His chest swelled with pride. "This community saved me," Lena said, voice slightly trembling, "as much as I've tried to serve it. When I first arrived here, I felt invisible. But Ignite Lab taught me that everyone matters, that every person has something to give." We also want to thank an anonymous donor, someone who helped expand our programs and support even more families. Whoever you are, you showed us that kindness can come from the most unexpected places. Like an angel showing up just when we needed one most. Julian clenched his hands on his lap, heart racing. She still didn't know it was him. After the ceremony, he lingered near the back of the room, watching Lena laugh, hug former students, and speak with their families. She pulled Matteo aside and whispered, "He's better than I expected, Matteo, but I'll always be the housekeeper to him." Matteo replied, "Miss Lena, anyone with eyes can see how special you are. Even him." Julian stood at a distance, jealousy simmering at their closeness. That old insecurity returned. She glanced toward him a few times, but each time someone else swept her away with congratulations. Finally, as the evening wound down, Lena made her way over, the wooden plaque still in her hand. "Mr. Cross, I didn't expect to see you here. Congratulations, Lena. You deserve every bit of this award." "Thank you," she said, fiddling with the edge of the plaque. "I didn't think charity galas were your style." "They usually aren't," Julian said quietly, "but this one was worth showing up for." Before Lena could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her eyes lighting up. "Mama, what did the doctor say?" She switched to Spanish, her voice fast and full of emotion. Julian waited, catching the faint sound of her soft laughter through the call. When she hung up, her eyes shimmered with tears. "Good news?" he asked. "The best." She smiled, voice trembling. "My mother is officially in remission. She's been living with me since the surgery, and today the doctor said she's completely healthy." Lena blinked, trying not to cry. "I've been so scared, and now, it feels like I can finally breathe." That's wonderful, Lena. You must be so relieved. Relieved and grateful. Someone, an anonymous donor, paid for her treatment. I want to find them and thank them. Without their help, I don't know what would have happened. Julian's throat tightened. She was thanking him, and she didn't even know it. He had never felt more cowardly. Lena, he began, his voice shaky. Then he stopped. How could he explain this without sounding like he had controlled her life from the shadows? What is it? She asked, tilting her head. Julian looked into her eyes. He knew he had to tell her. There's something I need to say. About the anonymous donor. She frowned slightly, confused. What about them? He took a deep breath. His voice was low. It was me, the donations to Ignite Lab, your mother's treatment, the laptop for the lab, all of it. Lena froze. The wooden plaque in her hands shook. What? She whispered. $60,000 to save the center? The money for my mother? The laptop? That was you? Julian nodded, shame flooding him. But how did you even know? Her eyes widened with realization. You followed me. Julian nodded again, eyes cast downward. That night you came home early. I thought you were stealing something. I followed you to Ignite Lab. I saw you teaching, and I realized how wrong I'd been. Lena sank into a nearby chair, her hands over her head. You followed my life. You interfered in it. No, Lena, it wasn't like that. Julian knelt beside her, trying to meet her eyes. Her voice rose, drawing glances from the few remaining guests. Wasn't it? You decided what I needed. What my family needed. What this center needed. Without asking. Without telling me. Julian took a breath, trying to keep his voice steady. You're right. I should have told you. At first, I was ashamed of why I followed you. Then I was afraid. Afraid you'd reject it if you knew the money was from me. Of course I would have. Lena stood suddenly, her eyes red. Do you know what it feels like to be treated like a charity case? I've worked so hard to make you see me, not as your housekeeper, but as a woman with dreams, with worth. My mother warned me, she added bitterly. She said men like you only see people like me as less. I thought she was wrong. But maybe I was the one who was wrong. Julian felt his heart twist. The pain in her voice ran deeper than he'd imagined. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. He stood there, frozen, as Lena turned and walked away, the soft light from the string lights casting her shadow behind her. Lena walked away, angry, hurt. But once the truth came out, they both realized they had fallen in love in moments they never thought possible. Julian stood in the nearly empty room of Ignite Lab, string lights casting a warm glow over his weary face. Before Lena could walk away, Nate, standing in the corner, whispered urgently through his earpiece. Tell her, or you'll lose her forever. Julian took a steadying breath. He summoned the courage to speak. Look at you, Lena. You've taught me what true wealth really is. Lena froze, turning back, her eyes still red, anger replaced by confusion. What am I to you? Some poor housekeeper who made you feel better about yourself? You're the first person I trusted after 3 years, Julian said, voice low but steady. You are kindness. You are intelligence. You are every beautiful thing I thought the world had lost. Lena blinked, stunned. You're the man I loved, she began quietly. The one I thought I could never have. I watched you through the office window, she continued, voice trembling with truth. I admired how devoted you were to medical AI, like you wanted to save the world. My mother, Rosa, called me silly for loving you, she whispered on, tears gathering, but she also told me that if my heart chose you, I needed to be brave. I was scared, but she helped me see that real love doesn't require perfection. I thought you only saw me as a housekeeper. Lena's voice cracked. Someone you suspected might betray you. But you, her voice faltered, you listened to my dreams, made me feel my work meant something. Julian stepped forward, closing the gap between them. I love you, Lena. I thought you loved someone else, someone who inspired you, not someone like me. But helping you, helping this place, was never about control or charity, it was love. Tears slipped down Lena's cheeks, but she smiled. You don't understand, do you? You are that person, the one and only in my life. She paused, but I convinced myself it was hopeless. You are the owner, a millionaire. I'm just the cleaner. Julian took her hands, his voice trembling. I fell in love with someone I thought would never love me back. He paused, searching her eyes. And I found out, you loved me in your own way. They stood together in the quiet room, string lights weaving a halo around them, as if all the misunderstandings melting away. Mateo and Luis, standing near the banquet table, peeked over. Luis whispered, "I knew it. Miss Lena likes him." Mateo pressed a thumbs up, grinning at the unfolding fairy tale. "I followed you because of suspicion," Julian admitted, eyes locked on hers. "But I love you, because you showed me the meaning of living with purpose." Lena brushed a tear from his cheek, voice soft and tender. "We really are idiots." He laughed, a raspy sound, freed after months of heaviness. "Completely idiots." "What happens now?" she asked, eyes bright. Julian squeezed her hand firmly. "I want to ask you something, Lena. But I need you to truly think about it. I don't just want to date you. I want to build a life with you. A partnership, equal and shared. I want to use my money, my connections, my resources to support your work, not as charity, but together, for a shared purpose." Lena's eyes widened in surprise. "You want to be my ally, in fighting inequality and injustice?" "I want to be your ally in everything," Julian said, his voice resolute. "You've taught me that money is just a tool. It only matters when it helps others. I want to learn from you, work alongside you, love you, while we change the world together." Lena smiled through tears. She stood on tiptoes and kissed him, a gentle, sweet promise of all that might come. Mateo and Luis, still watching, applauded quietly. They chuckled as Lena blushed upon realizing they'd seen. When they parted, foreheads resting together, Julian whispered, "One more thing. Your mother wants to meet me, right?" Lena laughed aloud. "Better get ready. She says you're too skinny, need to eat more." They walked out of Ignite Lab hand in hand, the lights of Austin streets shining like new promises. Julian paused by the cactus mural, now inscribed with new words, "Lena Ray's Scholarship Fund for a Fairer Future." He turned to her, eyes glowing. "I set it up to honor you, for students like Luis and Maria." Lena hugged him tightly, tears of joy slipping freely. Julian looked back at the mural. Tech para Todos, the place that brought them together, now part of their shared future. "Ready to change the world, Mr. Cross?" she asked, eyes sparkling. "With you, I'm ready for anything." 1 year later, Ignite Lab had never looked more beautiful. White roses and daisies filled every table, string lights twinkled overhead like a starry night. Lena stood at the far end of the room, wearing her grandmother's wedding gown, surveying the transformed space, the place that had changed her life and now marked the start of her new journey. "Ready, Mija?" Rosa asked softly, adjusting the veil. She had arrived in Austin 10 months ago, health restored, and her English now fluent, thanks to Julian's patient teaching. "More than ready, Mama," Lena replied, her heart fluttering. Rosa smiled, her voice hushed as wedding music began. "You are good, dear, just as I hoped. I used to worry he might not see who you really are. He loves you for you." Lena nodded, eyes shining. Ignite Lab buzzed with laughter and children darting around, the warmth of a community that had become family. Julian stood at the other end of the room, in his familiar navy suit, watching Lena walk toward him, knowing at last he had found where he truly belonged. Lena smiled, recalling their very first evening together, when Julian came to her small apartment carrying a wildflower bouquet and wearing an endearingly awkward expression. He'd squeezed onto her tiny kitchen stool, facing soft Spanish questions from her mother, Rosa. Rosa had spoken of Lena's father, a passionate mechanic who taught Lena to fix engines before he passed. Her voice caught as she said, "Julian, you remind me so much of him. Someone who truly sees my daughter's value." By the night's end, Rosa had shown him how to make tamales, sharing embarrassing childhood memories of Lena, like when she first tried coding robots on the old family computer and blew the fuse. Lena caught Julian's laughter and knew he had won her mother's heart. Together, Julian and Lena co-founded the Crossrays Institute for Ethical Tech, training underprivileged youth in technology. Their dream made real before the wedding day. Now, under the gentle glow of string lights at Ignite Lab, wedding music filled the air. Lena walked down the aisle between folding chairs, a unique audience mingling. Julian's tech partners sat beside Lena's former STEM students. AI directors chatted with community volunteers. Luis, now head of Ignite Lab's tech team thanks to their joint efforts, wiped tears with a handkerchief. At the front stood Julian, radiant in a perfectly fitted tuxedo. Next to him, Nate, the newly appointed best man, grinned mischievously like always after their shared dinners. Father Esteban, the familiar parish priest, began softly. Ladies and gentlemen, we gathered today to witness not only the union of two hearts, but of two souls who have found in each other not just love, but a shared purpose. Lena and Julian had written their own vows. Julian spoke first, his voice strong and clear. Lena, you taught me that wealth isn't measured by a bank balance, but by the lives we touch. 3 years ago, Rachel took away my AI technology and shattered my trust. But you gave me a new world, where trust is the starting point, never the end. You showed me that trusting someone isn't a weakness, it's strength. You proved that love doesn't divide us because of our differences. It multiplies our power to do good. I promise to be your partner. In love, in life, and in making a world more just. Lena followed, voice steady but shining with emotion. Julian, you taught me that prejudice can blind us to unexpected wonders. You showed me that opening your heart is not foolish, it's brave. You proved that two people from different worlds can build something entirely new. I promise to stand by you, in dreams made real, in challenges we will face, and in the joy of serving something greater than ourselves. When Father Esteban pronounced them husband and wife, the room erupted into applause. Maria, now a STEM assistant, threw confetti despite the no rice sign. Kids from after-school classes ran up, clasping handmade congratulatory cards glittering with tinsel. At the reception, Lena and Julian weaved through the crowd, offering thanks and soaking up joy. It had already been 3 months since launching the Crossrays Institute for Ethical Tech, focused on tech education for underserved communities, with Lena as CEO and Julian heading strategy and funding. They established Luis and Maria STEM scholarships, helping hundreds of teens access tech education. Luis now mentors, while Maria leads basic AI classes. They also launched the free AI app, Ignite Code, inspired by Luis's medical assist robot. At the Institute launch event, Luis showcased his robot in action at a local clinic to raucous applause. A student of color shared, "I used to be turned away because I didn't have the academic credentials. Today, a robot I built is helping train frontline nurses." They had changed hundreds of lives. Remember when you thought I stole technology? Lena teased during their first dance, lights catching her wedding dress. And when you thought I saw you only as a housekeeper? Julian replied, pulling her closer as they swayed. They laughed, spinning slowly on the floor as their community joined in the celebration. The dance floor filled. Nate spun Rosa, now his self-proclaimed Spanish teacher. Luis twirled his little sister, now a robotics student. An elderly couple who'd once been coding students glided by with fluid steps. As the evening wound down, Lena paused in front of the classroom where it all began, the night Julian first followed her. A plaque now read, Lena Reyes Cross Learning Center, where every voice matters. Lena recognized it as a secret gift from Julian, installed the night before the wedding, a silent vow to their shared mission. She turned to him, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Any regrets?" Julian asked, holding her from behind, warmth spreading through her. "Just one," Lena whispered, leaning into him, coffee and oak lingering in his scent. "What's that?" he teased. "That we took so long to realize we were made to be a team." Julian kissed her hair and murmured, "We found each other right on time. That's all that matters." Outside, the Austin skyline glimmered. A city where a suspicious millionaire once followed his housekeeper and discovered the greatest treasure was not wealth, but a shared vision and a love that grew more abundant than either of them ever dreamed. Tomorrow, Lena and Julian would fly to New Mexico to meet the extended Reyes family, who had already sent handcrafted wedding gifts and invited them for dinner via video call. Then, they would return to their shared mission, expanding free tech classes, growing the institute, and proving that when love and resources come together, they can change the world. But tonight, in the midst of the community that united them, Lena and Julian held each other tight, awestruck by how a story born of suspicion had blossomed into love, partnership, and unending joy. Off to the side, Nate raised his glass in celebration. Rosa distributed leftover treats to families. Ignite Lab carried on, turning strangers into family, connection by connection. Some love stories begin with grand gestures or fateful meetings. This one began when a millionaire followed his housekeeper home, only to discover that the greatest treasure wasn't hidden. It was waiting for him all along, when he finally opened his heart. Thank you for walking with us to the final page of this story. Somewhere in your life, perhaps you've met someone you loved with everything you had, only to discover that your trust had been stolen. Or maybe you've doubted someone, wondered if they were quietly unraveling the world you worked so hard to build. Have you ever stood on that edge, between suspicion and the aching desire to believe again? If one day you realize the person beside you isn't who you thought they were, what would you choose? To walk away? To fight? To forgive? Leave a comment below, not just to share, but to remind someone out there that they are not alone in their heartbreak. If the story of a guarded millionaire and the woman who once cleaned his house stirred something in you, a lump in your throat, a forgotten memory, a quiet truth, send it to someone who may need these words today. And if you're longing for more stories that feel honest, deep, where trust is tested and love has the power to bridge impossible distances, hit subscribe and never miss the next journey. These aren't just chapters. They're a community where wounds are seen and the courage to trust again is honored. Thank you for being here.